Hello and welcome to another edition of the Business of Story brought to you by Sendable, the social media management platform relied on by more than 3,000 digital agencies around the globe. I'm your intrepid host, Park Howell, and I am so happy you're here with us today. And guess what? I am super excited to announce that my new book, Brand Bewitchery, is arriving June 1st. With it, you will clarify your brand story to captivate your customers. Plus, you'll learn storytelling techniques to amplify your impact, grow your influence, your business, and your people. And you'll ultimately simplify your life through a focused vision and mission. You can pre-order your copy of Brand Bewitchery right now at businessofstory.com/Brand Bewitchery. And when you do, you can take advantage of 3 bonuses with your pre-order, including a free impact call with me to start untangling your brand story. I call it the most invaluable free advice you'll ever receive about your brand storytelling. I've also included in Brand Bewitchery our foolproof story activation plan that will guide you step by step on how to easily launch your new brand story to make an immediate impact with your sales. So pre-order your copy of Brand Bewitchery today at businessofstory.com/Brand Bewitchery. And you know what? Your timing couldn't be better because we are all squarely in 2020, the year that has kicked off the decade of distraction. Or you might call it the misinformation age of so-called fake news, or worse, your true stories simply missing your targets altogether. But it's more important and more difficult now than ever to get your purpose-driven brand stories heard and acted upon. So on today's show, Saksham Sharda will present a potential solution. He is the creative director at Outgrow, a platform that increases your story's connectability through quizzes, surveys, calculators, giveaways, polls, and other interactive content. You capture real insights from your audiences while providing them real-time value in return to make them part of your story. No fake news here. He says that studies have shown that interactive content actually increases conversion rates by 43%, can reduce bounce rates that are typically around 62% to 17%, and ups social sharing by 28%. Now, if you know me, I don't typically share a bunch of numbers in my storytelling, but you got to admit, those are pretty impressive. Dr. Sharda, he's a doc with a fascinating background that we'll talk about in measuring the impact of theatrical storytelling. Well, he's here to share his expertise, which is in marketing and web development, particularly in data collection, analysis, filtering, and transfer by the means of widgets, applets, and dynamic content. Essentially, those are big confusing words for saying, how do you get your people actually interacting with your content and your storytelling? He's a fascinating dude because he designed interactive, cultural, and trending widgets that have been featured on Product Hunt, Trend Hunter, Flipboard, TechCrunch, GitHub, and World Silicon Valley, among other tech trendy publications and places. On today's show, you'll learn Saksham's insights on why millennials don't want to be told a story, but to interact with one. Why he believes your sales success is only 20% of the story and 80% in how it's delivered. And how to feed the human need for curiosity to create irresistible content. So, how do you deliver can't-miss marketing in our misinformation age? Well, let's find out right now on the Business of Story. Saksham, welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you, Park.
You know, one of the great things about running a podcast is you get to talk to really fascinating people from all around the world. And where are you coming to us from today?
I actually work for Outgrow. That's a company based in New York, but I handle the European market. So I am currently in Prague, where the coronavirus lockdown is actually being lifted because there are 2 little cases, new cases. So yeah, it's a crazy world.
Really? Okay. So how long have you guys been locked down there?
We've been locked down for a month now, almost, maybe more than a month, maybe a month and I don't know, 10 days. But the
Hmm.
point is that the cases are so low now, they are gradually easing the lockdown because I think they want more cases so that, the hospitals are always at ample, quantity.
Yeah, were you guys like really locked down, the shelter in place, and you can't go out and do anything other than go and get some food?
I think the crucial thing they did was they made wearing masks compulsory. And it's not that it can prevent it, but it does prevent, mass infection. So if someone sneezes in a supermarket, it's just contained within their mask. So, I think it's the mask thing. We can go out, we can meet people one on one, and that's what the case has been like in general. It's not encouraged, but it's also not banned. But the rule is that wherever you go, you have to wear a mask, and all supermarkets and everywhere, there's hand sanitizer provided, so you have to wash your hands before you actually go inside. So,
Hmm. And are people getting pretty itchy to get outside like they are here in America?
oh my god, because the spring has hit it. Like, this is like Central Europe, so spring hits it really hard. Like you'd see like the whole city blossom, like the whole old town in Prague. It smells of lilacs, so everyone really wants to go out. So I think it's gonna be an epic summer in case coronavirus dies out. It's just gonna be such an epic summer,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
let's hope that they've got it tamped down. Let's hope they can keep it tamped down. I'm in Arizona. It hasn't hit us so hard here. They do have the stay-at-home order. I work from my office
Mm.
because there's nobody around my little office building here. But I can tell. I just think it's any day now that they're going to start lifting that and getting people out, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Honestly, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to jump in and see what happens.
Same. I'm just like I'm dying to go outside. So as soon as like it is safe, I think I'm gonna be just like spending everything like all my day outside.
Yeah. I've got a brother up in Seattle, 57-year-old brother, Chris, who got COVID. And he's a healthy outdoorsman. He's a horseshoer, a farrier, um, and no pre existing conditions. And he got COVID first, thought it was allergies. Then he just blew it off as the flu. And he ended up in Swedish hospital in Seattle for 6 days, two of them in ICU. He's now at home convalescing. He's about 4 weeks into it. He's fighting blood clots. So it
Oh,
just goes to show and was a wake up call for all of us that, it can hit you and it can hit you pretty hard regardless of your background. In fact, I did a show with he and his daughter Elsie here a couple weeks ago on the Business of Story show number 248, and it has gotten like worldwide attention. I mean, I have been fielding texts and Facebook IMs and emails from around the world of people hearing it, like just that, oh my gosh.
oh, so what was the show about?
Well, it was about him. He tells the story of when he first started getting the symptoms and thought it was allergies, and then how it progressed in his whole stay in the hospital and how he went through that and how he got home and then the blood clots. The interesting side story to this is his daughter Elsie had just graduated from medical school in Philadelphia, and her husband, who had graduated with her, were driving cross country to do their residencies in San Diego. And while they were driving across country, their father, my brother Chris, really started going downhill. And about the time they got to San Diego was about the time they admitted him in the hospital. So I interviewed both of them. And we heard from the patient. Chris took us through his whole experience. And then Elsie, who was our main family conduit to the doctors in keeping us apprised of what was happening and how they were treating him and the outcome of it. So it was kind of an interesting parallel story of how COVID impacted our family from a patient that was like really, really sick through his daughter that helped make sense of it all for us as he was going through it.
I know it's just the entire thing is like it's just so unprecedented, at least like in my lifetime. I think in Europe, I think the Chancellor of Germany was describing it as the biggest crisis since the Second World War. So I think everyone's experience, or everyone who's actually been through it, like your brother, it's just I think it's historic. I think it's really novel. It's got this probably has had a traumatic effect on a lot of people, because I don't think anyone our generation's actually experienced something like this before. So I completely understand the viewpoint.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yet, business goes on. You know, we all have mouths to feed. We've got to stay in business. We've got to be there to help our clients do their thing while being sensitive to this whole thing. And that's why when your request came in to us about being on the show, I was fascinated with what Outgrow is doing. And in 250 plus shows, we've never really covered the interactive content side of brand and business storytelling. It's something new to me anyway. And given this upside down, bizarre world we're all going through, I think it's great to introduce some new ideas to our listeners. Since we come out of the other side of this thing, it's going to be a whole new world. And now is the time to really get your brand establish your platform, and so that you can be there, and jump into the new world 2.0 in great fashion, quite honestly. So, Saksham, tell me a little bit about Outgrow, what it does, and then give us your backstory. How do you find yourself here working in the interactive content space?
Ooh, so that's a
I
it's a
know the one,
complicated.
two.
That's two questions in one. Well, let me just begin by what Outgrow does. I think what we're entering with, so the current age we live in is the information age. And the thing about the information age is that there is too much information. Everyone has a story to tell. Everyone, there are billions of websites. This is like .com boom multiplied by a billion, because there's so much information out there. And I think during the coronavirus crisis, one of the things that has actually come to the fore is misinformation. There's so much misinformation out there as well as information. So how does one even go about telling their story in these times? How does one actually get the word across and everything? So I think the solution to this which is something that a company does for a lot of businesses and brands, etc., is being able to tell your story interactively, which is in a way, this is actually also related to how we are actually entering a new sort of culture. It's collaborative culture. So when you're telling your story, your reader has the ability to input something. And when they input something, your story molds itself around that person. So that story becomes particular to that person. And that's what our company Outgrow allows you to do. It allows you to make interactive experiences that also ask questions to the users, and based on that, your entire website's let's just say the way your website's marketing itself, it positions itself around a particular user, so that user thinks that story is specifically geared towards them. So it sounds really futuristic, but it's really simple once you actually use it practically. So yeah, so that's what Outgrow does. And
Saksham, before we jump into your backstory, you gave me a thought here. You said we're in the information age. Well, we've been in the information age for a while now, but you gave me a thought. You know what we maybe are in now? The misinformation age. And there's two aspects to that misinformation. Number one, just purely false information going out. So is your story, is your communication trustworthy? And the other side of that, or is your story or communication completely just missing everybody because they're not paying any attention? So I am going to coin right now that we are now officially in the misinformation age. And the idea here is for your truthful stories, well told, do not miss their markets. Are you on board with me for that?
Definitely. I would say it's more like the late information age, as people say, the late capitalism. Late capitalism is characterized by too much capitalism, or capital being allocated at the wrong places. What everything that happened with WeWork and SoftBank, capital being misallocated. Venture capitalists who don't know what they're doing. I'm not saying not all of them don't know what they're doing. It's just become too much. Everyone's doing it. So I think with the information age, the point of the late information age is, I think when you say you characterize it as misinformation age, I think the collapse of the age is going to happen, and that is why there's misinformation, and that is why we're in the late information age. So unless, like you said, people actually adapt to this flood of misinformation, of fake news, of there are actually so many websites now combating fake news, and I think in Hungary, which is obviously right wing, and I don't want to use that as an example, but it's now become punishable by law. And that's also problematic because once you say, oh, misinformation is punishable by law, how do you know what is not misinformation and what is misinformation? So if the state wanted, it could just say, oh, what you said is misinformation, so it's punishable by law, so you're going to jail. And it might be true, but the state has decided that it's false. So it's really complicated. So I would call it the misinformation age, but also just like a very essential characteristic of the information age itself, or the decline of the information age, perhaps. I don't know, yeah.
All right, we'll pull up out of that rabbit hole, and let's talk a little bit about you. How did you find yourself in this world of interactive content?
Well, I actually did a PhD thesis on marketing traditional films to modern audiences. That's actually what was my original field of study. So that's what I was doing research on. It was a European program funded by the EU. And the EU actually doesn't have any. So when you're doing a PhD with them, they don't want you to do it in a particular discipline. So you can actually work across disciplines. So I got into like marketing and also interactive marketing, because what I realized was that the culture that we are living in right now, all the millennials and everyone, they love interacting. So they don't want something told to them, and they can't listen to your story for more than 2 minutes because they have very short attention spans. So you need to be interacting with them, and that is how you get your story told. That is how you market your product, and that is how you build a brand. So that's actually, I come from a very philosophical viewpoint. And then I started working for Outgrow, because Outgrow was one of the first companies that was actually trying to do this. But the most common example everyone must have heard of is Buzzfeed, because Buzzfeed did a very simple thing. And the entire meteoric rise of Buzzfeed through the noughties and like into the 2010s is because of a very simple thing: quizzes. So that's what they were not telling stories, they were not writing articles. All they did was they'd put quizzes out there. So this was like the beginning of an interactive article where you put in something and you get value in return. So like, I think one of the BuzzFeed quizzes, like, what career should you actually have? It was actually providing real value. So a lot of, career consultancy firms actually took those quizzes, put them on their website. And all of a sudden now you have these being used professionally, whereas BuzzFeed was just using them to generate virality. So that's kind of my story, where I'm coming from and what I saw in the market and where I wanted to work and where I felt the information age was heading. So yeah.
I'm interested in your PhD thesis. So what is your doctorate in?
So there's no discipline once again. So
okay, not at all. So it's just a doctorate, but it's not like physics or media or anything like that.
Well, I was looking at traditional culture. So we were looking at dramas and films, but how to market them to modern audiences. So it was, it's no particular kind of, let's just say, discipline, because I was just allowed to cut across departments and find any kind of supervisor I wanted, talk to different institutions. At one point, I was also working at theaters, trying to see how modern audiences are reacting to what is being put in front of them. So yeah, it was it was quite a mixture of a lot of things. Yeah.
And where do you think your interest in modern audiences and how they react to theater and film and media came from?
Where did it come from? I think in my childhood, well, I've actually never thought of where it actually came from, but if I were to psychoanalyze myself right now, in my childhood, we actually moved to a lot of places. Every year, we would move to a new place and live there for a year, because my dad was in the Air Force, so every year we just live in a new place for 1 year, because we kept getting transferred routinely. So that made me kind of realize that the sameness amongst difference in people in general. There are certain things that trigger people across different cultures, or like, different kind of languages, etc., etc. So I've just been fascinated with audience and people in general. So I think maybe that's where it comes from. uh, and I'm also, I think, in general, just fascinated by the flow of information. And I'm a total, like, tech geek. I love being on the internet. I can actually be on my laptop the whole day. Even though I do enjoy the spring, I'll go outside in the spring, but I'll be on my laptop. I just love seeing what's happening online. I actually read the news daily and obsessively, like, because I keep like refreshing BBC, CNN, all news websites, because I just like the way humanity processes information and in what way the information is going. So yeah.
So, what did you learn from your PhD, your thesis, that you are applying at Outgrow, or at least you see the mechanics of interactive content working? What was there a dot or dots that you were able to connect? Because getting a PhD is a lot of hard work, a lot of research. So that must really inform how you do and what you do at Outgrow.
Well, to connect the dots, to me, it's just like, well, in general, in culture, when we talk about the business of storytelling or building brand value around your company, the biggest dots to be connected from traditional culture, that, or marketing of traditional culture as well, is that cult value. So when you're making a brand, when you're trying to get your story across online, when you're trying to stand out in a crowd in an information society where everyone has a story to tell, the telling a unique story is, I think, now this is obviously a hyperbolic figure, but I think it's just like 20% of the job. 80%, I think, is actually the marketing around the story, which is like building a brand value around a person, building a cult value around a person, building an environment, an apt environment in which the story can be received. So I think that is the biggest connecting dot. It is basically the how do I put it? Marketing. I think marketing is a very modern phrase that's used, but marketing has been happening for the longest time in the history of mankind. I think it's everything we know, everything, all the information that comes to us. Even like, I think the texts we study at school are product of years of marketing, and that's what has put those texts in front of us for high schoolers and everyone. And these texts might not remain forever, because like, in the next stage, maybe some other language will become like, the dominating language, and its text would become the main thing. So I think marketing in general has been very fascinating for me. So that is the biggest connecting dot. I just see marketing everywhere and in everything.
So how does Outgrow do it differently, or your customers using your products? What kind of interactivity do you bring to their storytelling?
Well, so again, starting from like what's happening in the information age, there's too much information and there are too many people who are now online. Everyone has a website. Everyone has like, somewhere to tell their story. So how do you even stand out? So what Outgrow does is a couple of simple things. Uh, it shortens the time period in which information is processed. So if someone goes to your website, so I'll give you an example. Let's say if you're a lawyer and you want to help your clients with legal cases, and so you open up a website and and you have a call to action there, like say, contact me. Now, what you realize eventually is that there are billions of other lawyers who have similar websites like you, and with a similar call to action, like, contact me. So instead, if you actually had there something, a kind of widget or an applet that you can actually just make on Outgrow without any coders or developers, that actually just says, see how much I can save you in legal fees. So it asks a couple of questions. It asks you about like what your particular case is. You can actually just automate all of these questions in Outgrow. If you have the expertise in your field, it'll be really easy for you to actually come up with the exact questions you need to ask in order to give them an outcome that really speaks to them and provide them a particular value. So that's basically what Outgrow allows you to do. It takes some information from your clients when they go to your website, and it provides you with a very targeted, specific value. And I think it's much better than just having a simple thing like contact me on your website. So that's what actually Outgrow allows a person to do.
And do you primarily have your widgets on your clients do on their homepages or within their websites, or do they include them in blog posts and other storytelling mediums out there?
So I think it's possible to do it anywhere. So anything that is static on anyone's website can be converted into something interactive. But in addition to that, you can actually have, as an influencer, because we actually work with a lot of influencers, and I think influencers, once again, are a very typical, also like, let's just say, influencers and marketing is very typical of the information age, to the extent that it was not in the ages that came before this. So I think we actually work with a lot of influencers and I help them out. So on Instagram, for instance, in your Insta stories, you can actually put quizzes or calculators. So say you're like an influencer, and you'd see tons of them on Instagram, an influencer who is helping you with weight training, or like losing weight, or like, helping you work out, or like a yoga teacher, and you have an Instagram account, and you obviously tell your stories on Instagram, and but everyone is telling their stories on Instagram. But what additional can you do? Additional things that you can do. And one of those things would be like putting a quiz there saying, which workout plan is best for you? Let me take this quiz and you can find out. And then people just swipe up on your Instagram story. They answer like 4 or 5 questions, and then they get a particular workout plan that is geared towards them. So that's one of the ways you can use it on Instagram. On blog posts, you can use it as a Facebook tab. Facebook actually allows you on your business page to add an additional tab where you can put interactive content. So that's how much the virality of this is. So I think there are many, many ways in which it can be used. It can also be like a chatbot on your website. So you don't actually have to be on your website all the time. You can have a 24/7 virtual shop assistant who's actually taking care of your customers' needs. So there are many possibilities in which you can actually do this.
So, Saksham, for instance, on the business of story, if I wanted to do something where I would not only gain knowledge about my followers, but then also give them some real value in return, I might use one of your quizzes on Instagram or maybe in my Facebook feed or whatever, and it might have 4 questions on it. And the lead question might be, what's the most important business story you need to tell? And it could be, my brand unique value proposition, my brand archetype, a sales story, or an HR story. And depending on what they click on, I, of course, would get that information. But if they click on, say, their unique value proposition, telling that story, then I could send them a, a single sheet worksheet that I've got, an interactive worksheet that they would get then to be able to fill out and craft their unique value proposition. Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly. So all this time, because it's all automated. So like you said, every time someone clicks on something, you are collecting that marketing data, and you are able to tell how further you can target this lead, this particular customer that has entered your marketing funnel. You can see how they've answered the questions. You can ask them for their budget, for instance, like, what is their marketing budget, how much they're planning to spend, what industry do they work in, what is their story going to be about, etc., etc. And then you can filter and segment all of these leads, and then using our tool, you can also automatically just generate trigger emails, that will follow up with these people. So it's really easy to collect marketing data. And what I really want to emphasize is that it's really easy to build this. We have like 1,000+ templates. So yes, you have to think of questions, but also if you have expertise in your field, as soon as you go on our website and you look at the templates, you would know what to do. And no matter what your industry is, you would easily be able to segment and, classify all your audience and collect good marketing data and be able to target them and follow up with them in very particular ways.
Mm-hmm. So it goes back to this idea of interactivity. So what, and some might argue this isn't really storytelling
Hello?
at all. This is just interacting with your audience to understand what kind of stories they are trying to tell or want to hear or whatever. But how would you use your tool in a story framework? Maybe, a client has an important story to tell about something, but to get to beckon their audience into that story, Is your tool appropriate for that? Is that kind of the lure to get them in to the rest of the content?
Yes, definitely. I think, for instance, well, let me try to give you an example. We have a client who's trying to build a podcasting course. So he wants to, well, he's doing it as a story, right? He just doesn't want it to be like a learning kind of tutorial. He's doing it as a story. He's telling his story. And as you go down the page and as you scroll down the page, you hear about how he started his podcast and, what you learn from this and all that. But if someone had to read all that, it's obviously going to be too much. And as I keep saying, in the information age, one of the key characteristics of the demographic is that because there is so much information, there's also a very less attention span. So no one might have the time to actually read that entire ebook or that entire huge blog post that someone's writing. So how can you actually keep the attention going? And that's, I think, the way to do it is actually to use quizzes and polls and assessments and recommendations within that framework, so that the reader is not constantly having to read, but he also has some input to give. And once he gives that input, then you take him to a particular screen where the story is continued in a different direction. So you can have a story that's branching off into multiple directions, and it's a quiz or an assessment or a poll or a calculator that separates these branches and takes people in different directions that are more relevant to them. So it's like, I don't know if you've seen Bandersnatch, Netflix's Bandersnatch, the interactive movie. So that's the one in which, the way you answer the question that Netflix pops to you in the middle of that movie is the way is going to take you in a different direction than it might take someone else. So I think that is how interactive storytelling can work with Outgrow, is that
and you just take your widgets
learning
then.
from the
So
other. Yeah.
if I'm writing a story and say I've got to focus on one particular audience, and they may want to go in 3 different directions depending on what their core competency is within their organization. So I would begin my story, then I might have an assessment or a quiz, between the second and third paragraph. And depending on how they answered that, then it branches out, and I've rewritten this story 3 different ways depending on what their core interest is.
Exactly. And when I say you can actually just do this within the quiz itself. So it doesn't have to be a quiz that comes after the first paragraph and then, it takes you somewhere else. It's just that the whole thing can be built on Outgrow. So, you're telling the interactive story in a quiz itself. So a quiz is a misnomer. I just say an interactive kind of interface. So you're telling the story in an interactive interface, and depending on, people read the first screen and then they click one of the options and they're taken to a particular direction. So yeah, you got that right. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. What I'd like to do here real quick is take a break for our good friends over at Sendable. And then when we come back, what I'd like for you to do is share with us 2 or 3 case stories, studies of clients that have used your product and some really fabulous outcomes that maybe even surprised you in the process. Are you up for that?
Okay, sure.
You want to have some fun and gain some insights on how to make your content marketing sing? Well, then by all means, join the new Social Media Storytellers Facebook group. It's private, but everyone's welcome. It's the brainchild of Sendable, and I'm honored to be one of the thought leaders in the group. By the way, their words, not mine. And we would love to have you there. The Social Media Storytellers Facebook group is just another way Sendable goes out of its way to help you connect with your customers, whether you're a customer of theirs or not. Gavin Hammer and his crew have ratcheted up their helping during these bizarro world times, and now you can try them for free by registering at sendable.com/COVID-19 now until July 1st, 2020. What do you have to lose besides the cost of your current subscription with your current provider? You'll be joining thousands of digital agencies from around the world who rely on Sendable for all of their social media planning, publishing, tracking, and measurement. It's who we use at the Business of Story, and my social media manager, Marissa Hill, couldn't be happier. And believe me, it pays to keep Marissa happy. Sendable makes it super easy to source content from clients and collaborate closely with them to create a social media strategy built on proven storytelling principles. You can reliably plan and schedule content to be automatically published to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, or your channel of choice. Plus, and here's the great part, you get to demonstrate how good you are by showing your clients the impact your content is actually having on their audiences to create growth and to convert customers through their really, really easy in-depth reporting and analytics. And one of the coolest tools is the Smart Posts. With Smart Posts, you can simply craft social media content and in one step, customize it for each platform. This ups your chances to drive engagement and convert even more customers. So try Sendable now. And if you have the wherewithal, join their traction plan with your special Business of Story 30% discount at sendable.com/park30. That way you'll be supporting Gavin and his team as they work hard to support those who are truly in need. Sendable, it's social storytelling made super simple. Welcome back to the Business of Story. I'm Park Howell, and with me is Saksham Sharda of outgrow.co. Saksham, it's so great to have you here. Really fascinating. You've given me a ton of ideas of what I could do with Outgrow and the Business of Story and some of our storytelling. Can you share with us some success stories, some things your clients have done that maybe have even surprised you in how well they worked?
So what I like about the whole platform is, so Outgrow is a no-coding tool. So you basically don't need to know any coding at all. You could actually be a freelancer, a small business person, or anyone at all. And you go on a software and you are able to test it and expand its limits yourself, because you will be bringing the expertise of your own field to a place that allows you to actually to digitize that expertise. And which is what I love about no coding, because when everyone says that in the information age you will do well if you know coding, what I say to that is that if humanity is so good at coding, by now they must have been, by which you don't have to use coding, but you can code without coding. And that's something what Outgrow allows you to do. So I'm always fascinated by what our clients are able to build. So we had this real estate client once who build this calculator that so he was trying to market properties for short term and long term, and he made a calculation widget called how much can you make by Airbnb-ing your property. So it asks just very simple questions, and you wouldn't think of these questions if you're not working in that particular field, but this guy was working in the field, so he was able to ask particular questions that were relevant. Like, for instance, where is your property located? Is it in a city that is a World Heritage Site? Which city is it located in? It asks for the city, and then he has all that data as to how many tourists does that particular city get? Does your property have a veranda? Does it have a balcony? Is it near the seaside? So there were questions like these, and how many times a year do you want to rent it, etc., etc. And then it would provide you in a graphic and an infographic way. So it would give you a particular numerical result, and then it'll also show you all of this in a graph. So you see the return of investment over time. And so he made this, and then he put it on a couple of websites, and he put it on his own website, and it went viral. It was actually picked up by a lot of websites, and it was really it was really talked about. I think Trend Hunter and a couple of other websites picked it up. So that's one example of a real estate client who managed to use it really well.
And so he was able to get that information about his potential clients, but was giving them basically a infographic on the business model of what they might be able to achieve with the sale or rental of their home. Do I have
Exactly.
that right?
Yeah. So you basically pointed out the entire other side of this is that he was collecting marketing data. And that's the point of storytelling, I think, in the information age, is that you are telling a story, but at the same time, you're also collecting marketing data consensually. So I think that's the great thing. That is the value that he's getting, because it's a free service that he's providing, but in return, he's also enhancing his own business. So yeah.
Well, I would imagine it's really important to provide that added value to the person taking the quiz, so they don't just feel like they're just giving away more information, that if you can, to be able to give them something in return while you're getting their marketing data, you are providing added value to them, and then in hopes that you're going to coax them a little bit deeper into your own brand story.
Exactly, I think that's what HubSpot and all these other brands talk about when they talk about inbound marketing, that you are actually providing some significant value, and the value that comes back to you, the user thinks it's not that great. They actually love the value that they are getting, and they don't actually care what you're getting in return. And it's not even like significant. I think the marketing data that you collect only becomes significant when you collect a lot of it. So I think the individual person's not actually so much concerned about it. And it's always done consensually, and we follow GDPR guidelines and everything. So yeah, that's one example. But another example I wanted to give you was about this brand that wanted to sell sunglasses online, and also a brand that wanted to sell makeup sets online. So the sunglasses brand, and these are kind of like related examples, so I'm going to talk about them together. So when you're trying to like buy sunglasses online, there's just too many of them, so you don't know which one to buy. But if you go to like a physical shop, like in a mall or like in a physical store in the real world, there'll always be a shop assistant who has expertise on the field and can recommend you a particular like sunglass or shades. Or like if you go to like a Sephora or any other makeup shop, in general, they would have expertise. There'll be a shop assistant who would be able to tell you which makeup set suits you the best and which one you should buy. But online, this is not so easy. You just see tons and tons of products, which are mostly sorted by like which one is more expensive and which one is cheaper, and you actually can't even test them out. So these sunglasses, in the case of the sunglasses, this brand was able to ask, they had expertise in the field. So what they did, they asked like 5 questions. For instance, what is your face shape? What is your skin tone? What color lenses you prefer? And what is your eye color? And so based on these 4 questions, and they had the options to add more questions like, is there a particular actor you like? Or like, is there a particular actress you like? Because we can always suggest you sunglasses that these actors or actresses are wearing. So these 5 questions, they put this in the e-commerce recommendation. And once these questions were asked, like if you have a diamond face shape or like an oval shape or a square jaw, it can recommend you sunglasses that are aviators, or like different kinds, like square shaped, circle shaped, or like all kinds of shapes and colors and lenses. So that's what the sunglasses shop did.
Interesting. And so they get a really great insight into consumer demand, and also some ethnicity in there and what people are looking for. And I would imagine that sort of revealed some insights they probably didn't have before. And I really love that idea of matching the actors and actresses and what they're wearing with the form. People fill out the form of what they're looking for to see it in action. And of course, you get kind of that third party credibility out of that.
Exactly. So which is like when I wanted to, like, the key thing about this is that, yes, there can be questions that will relate, like your skin tone or like your eye color or your face shape. These are physical features. But then you also go into psychological features, like, which actors or actresses do you want to look like? Or like, not to look like, but which actors or actresses are the ones that you like. So we'll recommend you something based on that. And then also like features like how fashionable. So we have a rating. So, in all these interactive content pieces, it's not just question and answer or like, pick a particular option. It's also rating. So, you can say, how fashionable do your friends think you are? So it could be like a scale from 1 to 10. And then you can answer that. And based on that, we'll take that factor into consideration when we are recommending you a particular sunglass. So I think the possibilities are endless. And I think the more expertise you have in your particular field, the more kinds of questions you're able to think of that really impact the decision to buy or the ability of someone to like a particular product. So I think the possibilities are endless. For instance, like when I said which makeup set you should buy, one of the questions, which I had no idea about, because like I don't know much about makeup, but one of the questions was, what colors are the veins under your wrists? And apparently that's very determining of what makeup should go on your face.
You have me looking at the veins on my wrist right now. I would have never thought of that question myself.
Yeah. So it's which is what I say, like, we serve every industry in the market. And I learned so much from this. So like when you said, like, when I was doing my thesis, I learned a lot and I did a lot of research, but I learned so much when someone goes on a software and they make something and it expands the boundaries of our software and their own field. I learned so much about, like, makeup sets, like even like things I had no idea about, like, the veins under your skin can tell you something, can determine what makeup will suit you on your face. So yeah, I think it's very
Interesting.
exciting. I love my job.
I can tell. I love your passion behind it, your energy behind it. Outgrow.co. I'm there right now, and I'm looking at the different tools you have. You've got calculators, quizzes, assessments, recommendations, polls, chatbots, giveaways, forms, and surveys. Do you also help kind of guide your clients through this? Because it seems like you can do a lot. And again, when all that choice comes in, it can get confusing. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. Do you guys take us through tutorials on this stuff?
Definitely. I think we actually have an award-winning customer support staff. So if this is a secret, if you ever get stuck anywhere, just tell them and they will respond to you as soon as possible. But for onboarding, like itself, on the top, like you see templates, and there's an option to search by industry. Like if you like click on templates, you see search by
Yep,
industry.
I'm
That would
doing
just
that.
like give you particular examples for your own particular industry. So that's a way to narrow it down. The reason on the homepage that we've mentioned these 8 kinds of interactive content pieces, because I think, again, going back to the information age, these are the 8 fundamental things that humans love to interact with. It's either a calculation, if I can actually give you a calculation, or I can give you a quiz kind of result. I can ask you a question and give you an answer. Or I can show you in an assessment or a poll how your answer compares to someone else's answer. So you see, each of these are directed towards a fundamental human instinct. And that's why we have like listed them in the front. So this actually caters to a lot of people, because sometimes people come to our website and they look at this and they know exactly what they want to do. So I think that's why we put it there. But if you are a bit confused, there are 2 options. Either go to the chatbot that we have on a page at the bottom right,
That'd be
and someone
Rose,
will be,
right?
what'd you say?
That would be Rose. Rose, your chatbot.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
She's
Yeah.
popping up right now. I'm seeing Rose. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So you can go there and they'd be very helpful to help you out. Or you can just go to templates and search by industry and you'll be able to find something particular. So there are like 1,000 plus templates that we have learned from our own customers and we put them up. And so it's you have many options as to what you can do on the website. Yeah.
I got you. And final question from me. So these different calculators, quizzes, assessments, can you feed them out or post them on all the different social media channels, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, or how does that work?
So you can put them on all social media channels. You can embed them. You can put them in your emails. So to your subscriber list, you can embed them in your email. You can have them as pop-ups on your websites. You can run advertisements on them on social media, on like Facebook, on LinkedIn or Instagram. You can have them as sidebars or like floating rectangles in your website, or even like have a full page. You can basically have a whole website. You can make a whole website with like a quiz. So
Hmm.
imagine like because like imagine you can, like, people have like normal websites, like, it's a website, you see like a couple of menu options, but your whole website could just be a chatbot. You can actually do that. So you just like have a particular link. You're able to like make your own URL on Outgrow. So whatever you want to put your website name or whatever you want the URL to be, it can be there. And the whole website can be an interactive chatbot that guides you through the different features of the services or products that you're providing. So the possibilities are really endless. So yeah.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. I mean, complete interactive storytelling where you're actually experiencing it. It's not just one-way communication. When you had said earlier about, Buzzfeed and the others, it's all about giving away your ideas and your insights and adding value that way. And most people do it through, written form, blogs or infographics or podcasts or videos.
Mhm.
But you were talking about taking it one step further, because all of that is very directional storytelling. I'm just sharing with you my point of view, my experience, whatever. What you're talking about is bringing way more dimension to that and interactivity to that through these different kinds of quizzes and assessments and so forth. And you make it easy over at outgrow.co.
Exactly. I think it's just the great experience the user gets, like, because of all of this. It's just knowing that, the website tried to make an effort to like be interactive and to try to understand me as a customer, and was really trying to help me out so that I didn't have to go around, getting confused by everything else on the internet. Like, because there's too much information, and that's my key thing. Because I personally would never be able to pick something, like, because there's just too much going on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Too much noise, too much misinformation, which makes your information miss, and too much decision making. So my final question for you, with all of your background and your studies and audiences and in theater, I'm really fascinated by that, by the way, your PhD thesis. And now that you've evolved your career into this interactive content, what from your experience with Outgrow and your customers is your biggest aha moment? What has surprised you or even added to that doctorate in knowledge because it just hit you over the head? You thought, oh, that's pretty cool.
Ooh, that's a tough question. Let's see. What my biggest aha moment is the difference between academia and doing a doctorate and working for a company that is at the forefront of expanding a technology like outgrow.co. Because when I was doing academia, decisions were pretty slow. So we would like spend eternities discussing a particular idea before doing research on it and then putting it on paper. Whereas here, decisions are really fast. If you are at the forefront of an industry and you're the avant-garde and you're expanding the industry, and your clients are discovering new things on a software that you have made, it's exciting at a whole new different level. And that is the aha moment, I think, is the ability to see the contrast between that aspect of that industry of the information age and this industry of the information age. And that's what I keep telling our clients as well, because I have actually seen it happen, is that how you can actually use our tool, how you can actually use outgrow.co to make something that will, like, you could, like, over the weekend, I don't know what industry anyone who's listening to this podcast is in, but over the weekend, because it's a no-code tool, you don't need to know coding. So you've actually gotten rid of a whole area of human specialization, coding. You've just gotten rid of it. You don't need it. You go on a software, you can build an app, you can build a particular applet or a widget that would be as good as Microsoft's or like Google's. And this has happened. You can make something over the weekend that would compete with titans in the industry, in your particular industry. Because when I say, when I say you can make that, like that client that made the which sunglasses are best for you, that little widget that could actually recommend the right sunglasses for you, it doesn't take so long to make. You could just make it in 3 days because you know the questions, you have the expertise. But if Prada or Zara or Gucci or any of these famous brands had to make that widget, it would probably have to pass through multiple departments, multiple vetting processes, and then they put it on their website. And so it would take them a longer time to make it. But because if you're a small or a medium-sized business, or even a good-sized enterprise, you can make it fast on our website, put it on, make it over the weekend, put it on Monday, test it out, improve it. You can be fast and you can play at the level of really big companies. And that is my biggest aha moment. The fact that I've seen small businesses use this tool to make something that has put them at an equal footing with titans in the industry. And I think that is really great.
Well, that's so cool. Saksham, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And I can't wait for you to be released from your home there so you can go out and enjoy the spring and fog coming up. Sounds like you're going to have one heck of a summer there.
I know. I think it's going to be the summer of lifetime. I'm going to turn 30 this year, so I better have a good summer.
Well, happy birthday in the year of COVID. I guess you can say that. Thank you for listening to this special edition of The Business of Story. If you like what you heard about how to increase engagement and conversion by using more interactivity with your brand storytelling, and you think others in your circle would benefit from what Saksham shared and what Outgrow.co offers, then by all means, share this episode with them. Speaking of connecting with your audiences, visit Sendable.com today for your free trial, or simply sign up with a 30% discount on Sendable's Traction Plan at Sendable.com/Part30. And if you would like to put the brand storytelling principles that have grown organizations by as much as 600% to work for you, please pre-order my new book, Brand Bewitchery: How to Wield the Story Cycle System to Craft Spellbinding Stories for Your Brand at businessofstory.com/brand bewitchery. And take advantage of 3 bonuses available to you right now through the end of May. Join us next week when we will have another story artist here to help you craft and tell compelling stories that sell. And until then, remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks for listening.